Hi, Susan.
Hi, Thea.
Hi, how are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing great. So, why don't you tell everybody a little bit about your business and why you started your business?
Sure. I'm a business sales and success strategist, and I help female entrepreneurs who are struggling with sales. So, usually it's because they're selling with less ease, more sleaze, right? And they
Yeah.
want to get rid of that sleazy feeling. And ultimately, they want to live a life of freedom and flexibility that they so desperately desire while still making the money and impact that they want to have in the world.
Mm.
And the reason why I got into my business is I had a major health issue that completely made me reevaluate my life,
Mm.
and I had to like redefine what my life looked like and redefine
Mm.
success for me. And I know that a lot of people go through similar life journeys, struggles, things that have happened
Mm.
and difficult. And I found myself in that same place a couple of years ago now and decided, you know what, I can redefine myself. I can still do what I'm meant to do. My purpose is to help other people, and I have skills that will help them to do that. And
Mm.
when I came into the online space, I realized that there were a lot of women who were struggling. They had so much passion and purpose,
Mm.
but they just lacked the confidence and the skills to be able to sell and to not feel gross about selling. And ultimately, it was preventing them from building a business that they could feel proud about, that was making the impact and the income that they really wanted. So I took almost 20 years of corporate sales leadership experience and
Mm.
translated that into the online world. And now I'm super passionate about helping all of these women that I've been able to work with. So they're building businesses that really are the ones that they've been dreaming of.
Mm.
So that's really why I do what I do. And ultimately, it helps me to put my priorities of family and health at the top of the list, where
Right.
for so long they were, I said they were at the top,
Mm.
but really they were at the bottom, right? Like, because
Yeah.
I was working 8 or 10 hours a day, and so I really had nothing left to give of me
Mm.
for my husband, my kids, and for me,
Yeah.
which is why my health just kept suffering
Yeah.
until enough was enough. Like, that was the end of the rope, and I had to decide between my life
Mm.
or my job, and
Wow.
I chose life. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really important is that you need to like take care of yourself in order to help other people, don't you?
Yeah, it's the airplane analogy, right? Like
Yeah.
they tell us, you put your the oxygen mask on first before you take
Yeah.
care of somebody else. But I find that especially as women, so often we don't do that. We don't
Yeah.
take that advice in our
Yeah.
day-to-day life. We're so busy helping other people. And I know that for your tribe, for my tribe, they're heart-centered. And even as introverted individuals, we have big hearts, big souls, big passions, and big dreams.
Mm.
And that takes a toll on us if we don't take care of ourselves.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I'm sorry it took you such a big experience to really
Yeah.
like change things. It's unfortunate, but I'm glad you're doing better now, um,
Yeah.
and that you've realized this. So I'm really glad that you're helping people with selling because I know like for myself that was like a big hurdle, right? Not wanting to feel sleazy, but then you don't have a career. Like you don't sell things if you're not like physically selling things. So that's great that you're helping people to actually like find a way that's to make selling feel okay, right? That feels good.
Yep, totally. Because for me, like, selling is serving, it's
Yeah.
supporting, it's, showing up, it's loving, it's doing all of those wonderful words that we are so passionate about.
Mm.
But when we wrap it up in sales, it automatically it freezes our heart, right? Like, it
Yeah.
just stops us in our tracks and creates a lot of fear and uncertainty
Yeah.
and a lot of doubt. And that's really what I try and empower women with, so that they have the skills and they have the ability to do what they need to do in order for you to have a business. So just
Yeah.
like you said, I share this all the time, without being able to sell and sell well,
Yeah.
right? That you don't have a business and you don't have a sustainable business. And that's often where, even if you get off to a good start, unless you are able to improve and continually practice your sales skills,
Mm.
you're going to struggle. And it might be early, it might be later on. But if you have kind of a start and stop, like as if you're learning to drive a standard car for the first time,
Mm.
then sales is something that is learnable. It is definitely a skill that even for myself as a sales coach, I constantly practice
Yeah.
every single day. So it's something that somebody else can learn. I am not a natural born salesperson. I had to learn it the
Mm.
hard way through trial and error, and have trained hundreds of people to be able to sell in a way that feels good for them. So it doesn't have to be how I do it, but you need to find your own way that feels really good, authentic, and congruent with how your values are and how you want to deliver your message to the world.
Yeah, I love that because I think there is a tendency to think that there's like some plug-in formula, but it's important to find out what feels good for you, right? What feels authentic.
Yeah, it is because oftentimes people come to me because they've gone through programs, courses, or even worked with other people, um, but they've only been shown one way,
Mm.
and it doesn't feel good. And
Yeah.
so then they resist, and then they feel bad because they know, like, if I just did this, I would be making money, but I can't do it, and so I can't make money.
Yeah.
And that just becomes like a vicious circle.
Yeah.
So I teach formulas, but they're customizable to you. So
Yeah.
it's like, baking. You have to follow the recipe, but if you want to swap things out, you have to figure out what other things need to change in order to make sure that the proportions stay, so
Mm.
that at the end of the day, you can still eat that cake, right? So
Yeah.
you can't just, change everything completely and still get to the end result. There is a
Mm.
definite flow to how things, especially in a sales call or sales conversation, need to flow.
Mm.
But other than that, it's really about taking your own personality and making sure that you bring that forward,
Mm.
because that's really what's going to attract your true ideal client. I mean, that's what's different about all of us,
Yeah.
is ourselves.
Yeah.
And the more we can bring of us to the table, the faster we're going to be able to encourage our ideal clients to connect with us and identify that they do want to work with us.
Yeah, that's an excellent point because, we're all different. I'm finding that a lot of my fellow introvert entrepreneurs think that they have to be like an extrovert or they have to mimic other people or make themselves blander in order to appeal to everybody, but that's not true, right?
No, it's not. And I know that, I've heard a lot because I'm a huge introvert. I've had to learn a lot of extroverted tendencies, and so I do consider myself somewhat ambivert. But let's face it, I think somebody had said, "Well, I get introvert fatigue, or introvert overwhelm," right? Like, I'm
Mm-hmm.
sure we can all relate where we've just been overwhelmed, overstimulated. And I think it's totally fine. Like, I tell my tribe all the time, and I think it makes me more authentic. And there's going to be people that don't understand.
Yeah.
That's totally okay. They're not for me.
Yeah.
I don't really worry about them. I'm only really worried about the one person that I meant to serve that day. And that's what my focus is. So I think the more that you can allow yourself to be without judgment of yourself, because I find that sometimes we're so worried about what other people think of us that we're judging ourselves first.
Mm.
If we can release that and just say, I'm an introvert. I don't label myself, but I know that I need to energize alone. Like, I need to
Yeah.
have that alone time. I schedule that in. I
Mm.
tell people that in advance. And that's part of my story. And that's part of how I introduce myself. It's part of how I attract more of my tribe to me, so
Mm.
they feel comfortable and relatable. And I think that's the key piece for anybody, especially as introverts, that you feel that you can, because even though we all call ourselves introverted, we're all very different, right?
Yeah.
I'm an introvert at a different level than you are,
Yeah.
and somebody else watching this will be. Be yourself, authentically you, no holds barred, the good, the bad, the ugly.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think that really helps people to connect with you, like your
Yeah.
authentic, true self,
Yeah.
in a way that when you put on the shows, when you try things, it's like putting on a mask, right? And I know that sometimes we say that in the corporate world, like, I'm putting on my corporate mask, but I feel like sometimes in the online space, we put on another mask, which is that we feel like either we have to be super visible, which doesn't always feel natural,
Mhm.
or we have to put on a mask of like an extroverted, like I have to use video or I have to do this because this is working for somebody else.
Mm.
Find something that you're passionate about that feels really good for you, and
Mm.
if you do that consistently, the people that want what you have to offer, however you're going to deliver it, they will find you. It
Yeah.
might take more time depending on what you choose, but you're probably going to feel better about doing it, and it's going to serve you better in the long run because it's something that you're already passionate about.
Yeah, definitely. I think self knowledge is really important, right? When you're an entrepreneur, just because it helps you just fuel yourself, but also connect with other people as well.
Yes. Yeah, for sure.
So, when you're working with clients, have you found some sort of difference between introverts and extroverts when it comes to selling, or are they pretty similar?
No, and because I focus right now on female entrepreneurs,
Hmm.
and service space. But in the past, I have coached men, women, introverts, and extroverts, and they all sell differently. So there's broad categories of introverts versus extroverts versus men versus women.
Mm.
And those kind of four groupings tend to sell in a very distinct way.
Mm.
And so if you follow an extroverted sales coach as an example, sometimes the scripts might sound very aggressive, like
Yeah.
all too pushy.
Yeah.
Um, and and vice versa, if you're an extrovert and you follow an introverted sales coach, you may actually find that they're too soft, like they're
Mm.
too almost passive aggressive, like, oh,
Mm.
I don't, a bit wishy-washy compared to your own natural style.
Right.
So it is important that you find somebody whose vibe kind of relates to you, that you have an opportunity to kind of try them out. But for me, selling at the core, the people that do the best, regardless of personality type, regardless of gender, are the ones who truly care about people.
Mm.
And I know based on what I know of you, and your audience, that those are the people that you're surrounding yourself with. Like, we all have a strong purpose and a mission with the business that we deliver, and we're here. Obviously, we'd love to make lots and lots of money, but ultimately, the number one reason why we're doing this is not for the money. It's for the impact. It's
Yeah.
for the connections and the relationships and the way that our gifts serve other people. And
Mm.
so when you focus on that, and I know sometimes it can be very frustrating when you are focused on that and you're still struggling, um, really be honest with what it is that you need to learn in order to help fill in the gaps around the skills that you're missing.
Yeah.
Because we don't wake up overnight, introverted or extroverted, and know how to run a business.
Hmm.
Those are not skills that we're just naturally born with, the vast majority of us. So it's
Yeah.
totally okay to say, you know what, I need a little help with my finances, and I'm going to need to hire someone for that, or I
Yeah.
need some help with sales and I'm going to hire somebody to help me with that. So I think that's really, really important, regardless of personality type.
Yeah, it is important to ask for that help sometimes, right? Because otherwise you're just struggling. And that's obviously draining, right? That's part of
Yeah.
self-care actually. Is sometimes just asking for the help. But I do like the concept of reframing selling as serving, right?
Yes, absolutely. And I find that most of my tribe, when I say that, when I, share that information, and we do spend some time kind of reframing and talking about sales mindset, as soon as that clicks for them, like that's usually a huge aha moment where
Mm-hmm.
they think, oh my God, of course, like it's so simple, but it just helps to take off such a huge amount of pressure and a lot of that ick factor.
Yeah.
Yeah, like huge ick factor, right? Where
Yeah.
you're automatically thinking of that super aggressive, pushy car salesman. I mean, 9 times out of 10, that is the image that when I say, okay, sales, like what comes to mind? And
Yeah.
it's car salesman. I did this recently in my tribe, and I was pleasantly surprised that only one person said pushy and
Mm.
didn't say, but just said, oh, it's somebody who's been overly aggressive and just pushy when I've said no already. And the rest have started to really understand that sales is service. It's being of service. It's showing your kindness. It's sharing your gifts. It's being supportive and being able to extend, part of you to somebody who needs that.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, I like that reframing too. It's service and it can also be kindness, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So, you mentioned that you have a corporate background in sales. Um, how did you deal with corporate life? Because I know at one point I was working at the head office of a bank and it was draining for me.
Yeah, it's funny, Thea, because my background is banking. It's
Mm,
finance and financial services in sales leadership. So I managed high performing teams.
mm,
It it was very high stress, which partly led to my health issues that I had. Um, but for me, the thing that drove me was I always had constant contact with not only my staff, like the people that I was coaching, but also clients. And
mm,
we were able to put them into their first homes, purchase their first cars, send their kids off to university, see them retire to the life of their dreams.
mhm,
Um, and on the flip side, see people that were in major financial struggles and be able to help them figure out a plan so they were able to at least feel like there was some hope at the end of the tunnel. So that for me was it was a lot of service, a lot of impact. And that's where
mhm,
I learned that service is sales because
mm,
I thought I was in a service role when I first started with the bank. It
mm,
was I was customer service. I was a teller. I thought all I was doing was taking money and sticking it into an account, but there was a heavy sales component that I did not expect, and I
mm,
had to learn through trial and error.
yeah.
And for me, the moment that it clicked was figuring out that what advice that I was providing was helping them to solve a problem. And so
Mm,
I was helping them, I was serving them to the best of my ability.
yeah.
And that's how I achieved my full year sales targets within 3 months.
Mm,
Um, and then it just quickly escalated from there. So
mm,
over my corporate career, I ended up selling over 600 million in sales revenue with between myself and my teams.
yeah.
But for me, it's not the money; it's more the people at the end of the day that we were
Mm,
able to help as a result. But yeah, corporate for me, it was great at the time. Um, Great at the time. It pushed me outside of my comfort zone because I had to
mhm.
lead teams, which, speaking in front of tens or hundreds of people, it's not so fun sometimes. Um, but it was time. It was time for a change.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um, well, and I love the point that you made that you had to learn it, right? That this won't come naturally to most people. Like it hasn't come naturally at all to me. But it's something that you can learn and improve on. And I'm assuming it's like any skill where the more you work on it, the better you'll be.
absolutely. And that's where the number one question that I ask people is how many calls have you
Mm,
had in a week or in a
yeah,
month?
yeah.
And if you are only having two, three, four, maybe five calls in a month,
Mm,
that's you're going to struggle
yeah.
because this is where sales, it is a numbers game. And the more that you can practice, it's like anything. It's like learning the piano, right? Like you would have to you practice every day. I remember as a kid, I learned to play the piano. There were days that I didn't want to practice. I had to sit and do the 30 minutes anyways. And slowly but surely, I started getting better and better and better because I had to practice.
Yeah.
And sales is the same thing. It's a muscle. And even for myself, if I'm busy with client calls, because it's very different the way that I coach versus handling a discovery call or a sales call.
Hmm.
Yes, there's some aspect of like the same conversation pieces and questioning, but the thought process is a little bit different when
Mm,
you're on a sales call. And so if I kind of fall out of practice myself, I need to get back out and make sure that I crank out a bunch of sales calls
mm,
so I can go back in and get that practice for my own self.
yeah.
Not something that comes naturally to me. It is something that I constantly am looking to improve. And it's going to be the same for somebody first starting out.
Yeah.
The best way to get better at something is to just keep going. And if you figure out that you have, I think the average conversion rate for a first time coach, like somebody just starting out as a coach or a consultant, you're going to be anywhere from 10 to maybe 20%. 20, like stretching it. I would say 10% is probably a more honest figure for an average conversion rate, which means that out of 10 calls that you make, 10 sales calls, you would be able to sign one paying client at whatever level of program that you're going to be offering.
Yeah. So it's really important to get on those calls.
It is, right? You have to kind of stack them up and make sure that you give yourself a fair shot at actually getting the sales that you need.
Yeah, definitely. If you could give advice to a fellow introvert entrepreneur, what would your one main advice be?
My one main advice would be to do it anyways, because I know that oftentimes as introverts, there's a lot of excuses and self-doubt and negative self-talk that comes up because we don't feel good enough. Like, I don't know why it is that the extroverts seem to be like the better half. I think it's a perception that the introverts, because a lot of introverts, I feel like especially in the online space, it feels like the extroverts get more attention. They're just more visible. Things might be more easy for them, that things come more naturally to them. And I would say, you know what? I don't think that's the case. I think everybody has their strengths and weaknesses. So I want you to don't use your introvertedness as an excuse. Use it as part of your superpower. Because I talk to my tribe a lot about what is your superpower. And so if you feel like being introverted is that extra little something that makes you, fabulous. Use it, leverage it, and do it anyways. Because when you hold on to it like a cloak of invisibility and you shackle yourself to your excuses, you're not going to be able to move forward. So take that first step, get the help and support if you need it. But I'm going to say that you need to get out of your own way in holding on to those excuses that are holding you back.
Yeah, I love that. And I think it's not just getting out of your own way, but also accepting yourself, right? It's kind of like two sides of the same coin. It's getting out of your own way, but also understanding that, your personality is just fine for actually creating the success you want. You probably just need some skills and some reframing in order to do that.
Exactly. I've said this before to a few clients. If you are the problem, then you are also the solution.
Yeah.
And I think that helps us to feel and take back the power and the control out of whatever circumstance is going to happen, because so often it's almost like victim. And so, yeah, I totally agree with what you just said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you could go back in time, what would you like to say to your younger introverted self?
I would say, and this one is a bit trickier for me because I feel like the things that I experienced have helped shape me today. But I would say that I think if I had allowed myself to be even more visible, that I might have had more opportunities to just see things that might have sparked a different creative purpose, or like just there may have been other things that it could have snowballed into. Does that make sense? Because I mean, I was very stereotypical introvert. Like, I loved to read. I had a very small group of close friends, and I think if I could give advice to that little girl and just say, you know what, it's totally okay to put yourself out there and feel foolish and do things that are outside of your comfort zone, not because you've taken a calculated risk and you feel like, okay, I think I know what this is going to get me, but do it anyways, even if you don't know what it's going to get you, because it might develop into something, or at the end of the day, you might just have a lot of fun doing it, and that's still a win.
Yeah. I love that. because that's actually something I still do is calculated risks, right?
I do it too. And
Yeah.
that's, yeah. And that advice I give to myself now as well as back then. But I think if I'd started earlier, it'd be easier now. Like I wouldn't have to keep telling myself this. It would just be more habitual.
Yeah, definitely. I love that advice. So where can people find you? Like, what's your social media platforms? And do you have anything going on right now that you would like people to know about?
Sure. So my main social media platform is Facebook. So I am Susan McVea, MCVEA on Facebook, and I do have a lovely community for any female entrepreneurs. I have to exclude the males. I don't know if you have males in your audience, Thea, but I've had people try and join. So it is for females. It's Successful Sales Strategies, and it's also on Facebook. I do a lot of live trainings in there. Right now, my Monday masterclasses is probably the biggest thing that's going on. And if anybody is struggling with the I can't afford it pricing objection, like if you
Mm,
are doing sales calls, if you are noticing that that phrase is coming up for you and you just don't know what to do, you just basically end the call as soon as you hear it,
mm,
then a freebie might be helpful for you. It is, I think I've pinned it to the top of my group post, so that's probably
okay.
going to be the easiest place to find it. But you
Okay.
can also find it on my personal and my business page. I think I've pinned it to both of those as well.
All right, great. Yeah, it sounds like a nice thing to have, and because I think maybe I'm just talking about myself, but I think a lot of us struggle with sales, and that's a key component of entrepreneurship. So definitely.
Yes, totally. Well, and I know even from my own experience, when I first started out, I heard that dang objection too.
Yeah.
So no, we're not immune to it. It does come up.
Yeah.
So don't feel like you're alone if you are hearing it, and if you are struggling with sales, come on over to the group. I do a lot of custom trainings based on the feedback that I received from my members, so that it's helpful for you at whatever stage that you're at.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for doing this, Susan. It was lovely
You're
speaking with you.
welcome.
All right.
That was great to be here. Thank you so much.
Yeah. You're very welcome. Okay. Have a nice day. Bye.
Thanks. Bye bye.